Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm so excited for season 2 and the great guests you're going to hear from, their struggles, how they overcame their struggles, their triumphs. Through personal and business life, I think they're tied together, and we're going to share great stories about that. This show isn't just about me. It takes a lot of good people working with me. Among them is my partner, H7 Network, and Clay Hicks. Building relationships, building community is the mission of H7 Network. They want to create a network of champions where everybody wins. Find out more at h7network.com. And we hope to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you through our show. Enjoy the show. We'll talk to you on the other side. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And as I always say, I've got a new servant guest today, and you're going to love John because just talking before the show, I could tell he's serving in his coaching. And that's the important thing when you're looking for a coach, is they're really serving you, not selling you or not pushing stuff down your throat. They're actually serving you. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Steve, very much. Nice to be here.
Well, this is exciting. Let's start with the 30 years of experience. Let's start with your background.
Yeah, it's amazing you say 30 years and like, don't blink, right? It just goes like, how did I get here? When I graduated college, I knew two things. First of all, I wanted to be a professional musician, and I pursued that in LA for a long time, unsuccessfully, but I had a great time. But I also had fallen in love with advertising through a lecturer in college. And he talked about what life was like at a big agency. And he was talking, and I'm a creative guy, and he was talking about travel. And as soon as he said no 2 days are the same, he had my attention. And I got into the business of advertising. I started as a secretary. That was my title. And I opened mail and I scheduled appointments, and people would call me and say, hey, I need coffee. And so I did all those things and progressed through my career over 30 years. I have a career that I'm actually very proud of. I worked with a lot of great people. I worked with a lot of great clients, made a lot of great work. If there's a big creative agency, I probably worked there. And, I always thought I wanted to be the president of an agency. And then you see what that means. And like, that job looks terrible to me, because it's not about work. So it's about the business. So anyway, EVP, I was there for a long time, and then, kind of felt like that had run its course. And I have no intention of stopping anytime soon working and being of value to people. So I said, let's go be a coach. And I looked around, and I found Northwestern, and I went there, and I got my executive coaching credential, and opened up my coaching practice. And I loved Northwestern so much that I'm actually a graduate student there now, and I'm getting my master's in leadership and organizational change. I got certified in conflict management and resolution through UC Irvine. I'm taking an emotional certification course through the University of Michigan to get certified in that. So I love to learn. And I think that's one of the reasons I had a good run in my career, is I'm just curious. I just want to know stuff.
Well, I love the phrase, no 2 days are the same. I've heard that, but it reminded me, I see why you loved it, because it's so right. I mean, you just look back at your last week, right? They're never the same. It's interesting you're getting education. And I say interesting because you're passionate about it. Why are you so passionate about these certificates and learning every day, or as much as you can?
Yeah. I think, I am my knowledge. I am my experience. And what I find, first of all, is I'm insatiably curious. And once I find something, I just want to know more. And it's quite easy for me to go down the rabbit hole. And what happens when I do these things is I start to meet like-minded people. and they start to teach me. They look at things different. No two people look at something the same. So they start to teach me. And who would have thought, I'm in my 50s and I'm in school, I'm doing all of these things.
Mhm.
And it is awesome. I joke, I'm older than my teachers. It's hysterical. But I learned from every one of them. So that the education, plus it was a change. It wasn't advertising. All of these things I'm talking about are new. And I love that. It had been a long time since I really talked and learned about something that was completely new to my life.
And I started college. I went back to college at 42, so I know exactly what
Yes.
you said. It's a great leadership tool because I'm sure people are coming to you. I know back
Yes.
then, hey, let's go study. You're the old guy. And I get them studying and, 20-year-olds, they're going. What's the lesson you're learning in college at 50 that you share with your coaching?
So that's a great question. And I will tell you what my experience is, or what the value that I'm able to bring is my experience. I've been in rooms. I've had meetings where clients fired the agency, yelled, made people cry. I've had a lot of good meetings. I've had a lot of bad meetings, and I've had everything in between. So when I am sitting in class and I have people that are younger than me, and they're 30s, sometimes early 40s, because it's a master's program. They know how to talk about theory, but I'm the guy in the room that says, well, let me tell you what that looks like in the real world, from my perspective. And so, that's the value that I bring. I don't think I'm not as academic as they are. They can get that very kind of academic theoretical understanding. I'm a highly practical guy. Like, so what does this mean? So I think that's the value that I bring to people in these classes. Is I think I'm better able than most of them to be able to share how maybe something we've just discussed, how it relates to my life, because I need that context. I need real world context. So, and it's wonderful. I mean, people, they want to learn, and and if you're going to Northwestern and you're in the MSLOC program, it's with people who are incredibly bright, but the nature of that school and the program is they're incredibly kind.
Oh, wow.
And they want to learn. I didn't have a lot of kind in advertising. Advertising doesn't celebrate nice guys and girls. You need to be pretty gnarly. So yeah, I get to share with them, and then they teach me, because their experience, every single one person in my major, in my program, has a different experience than I do. They all have something to teach me.
And I like that you said good meetings and bad meetings. You just defined no 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
And we'll get into what your big word is in a minute here, but let's talk about, because good meetings, we're all happy, they're great, you get the sale, well, kumbaya. But let's talk about a bad meeting you're in that you were surprised. Kind of tell us what happened and how'd you handle it emotionally, because it's an emotional event.
It is an emotional event, and I think what I'll do is I'll probably put a couple of them together. So when you work on something with someone, especially when you're in advertising, you're in the service business. Someone has hired you to do something. What often happens, and then we'll get, I'm sure we'll at some point get into this other specialty of mine, where I have seen more meetings go wrong than anything, was a fundamental understanding of what the meeting was about, what the project was about, and what the deliverable is. I can't tell you the number of meetings I walked in with really well thought out. We probably worked through the weekend, stayed up late, and you have a meeting and the client looks at that and says, that's not really what I asked for. And so there's a lot of things that come out of that. There's a lot of emotion. There's on both sides. There's frustration. There's the client's angry because you didn't answer the bell. The people who worked on the business are angry because they were there until 10 o'clock on Saturday night, and they go, we wasted our time. So for me, that was almost more than anything, was a fundamental misalignment on what it was that we were talking about. And sometimes I handled that emotionally well. Sometimes, sometimes I wanted to throw a stapler, right? Metaphorically, of course, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I've never actually done that. So I think that was that's it, Steve. I think it is where you look. Sometimes someone's in a bad mood. There's interpersonal issues, but it is often, there's a notion with communication, and communication only happens if the receiver gets it. So how many times people say, "I've told you this 10 times. Why are you still doing this?" Because communication hasn't happened. And so when I'm in those meetings and people are saying, "I told you this is what I wanted or what we were doing, how could you not get that?" Well, the reality is there's all sorts of different communication styles. There's a great assessment where it kind of gets you to the fore. And if you and I don't have the same communication style and we're not aware of that, then you're going to tell me something that you think is dead simple. And I may hear it and think something else. And then we're going to come together in a meeting. And if it's big business, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of time pressure. And you have this bad meeting, and all of a sudden you've just wasted 10 days of working, which means you've lost 10 days in the schedule. The launch date's not moving. So it is the fundamental inability to communicate, which is funny when you're in advertising, by the way, and your clients are marketing people. You're like, how the hell do you get that wrong? But it happens. We all have different references. We all have different ways that we communicate and we speak to each other.
And I love that, because this is doing business with a servant's heart. What's really cool is you could serve to the 100 millionth percent, and that still happens. That's why I wanted to ask you that. Just so well said. The key is it could be simple to communicate, and then you can serve again, and
Yes.
not to take it emotionally and move on. And I segue, because you're right. I'm going to segue into bad meetings, into conflict.
Yeah.
That's your specialty. Let's talk about conflict.
Yeah. But the one thing I really love, when you talk, it's one of the reasons that your show caught my attention. If you know anything about Microsoft, Satya Nadella came in and he kind of saved the company, and his entire thing was servant leadership. That was his point of view, and it changed it from this top down. And this is kind of how we'll get into conflict, is if I'm in servant leadership, and sometimes you can call that transformational leadership, where it's not top down. What it is it's about rallying people, getting them together. And it is about being in pursuit of a unified answer. It is not about trying to win, trying to control, trying to be the loudest, trying to be the most political, not political. Whatever, we all have negative tool sets, negative tools that we use. And oftentimes when we get frustrated, they really come out, which doesn't serve anybody, right? I'm sure you've had those, you're in a salon meeting, you're like, I don't even know what we're arguing about anymore. Like it just goes, it goes so off the rails. But the reason that I have so much passion for constructive conflict is central to the business of advertising. It is, anytime you get a big agency I've worked with the smartest people I've ever met, with huge personalities, right? People that state their opinion, and creative takes conflict. But what I didn't realize at the time, like sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be bad. And as I have been going through my graduate program, and you read and you learn more and more, you start to learn about the different types of conflict. And the very simple realization, and all I'm doing is packaging up all my experience and all of these things, is that most of us detest conflict. It's either too personal, or we want to run the other direction, right? We want nothing to do with it. And we think that conflict is unkind. Actually, not dealing with conflict is unkind, right? So we need to flip that. So as I begin to be exposed to these concepts through my graduate program, someone said to me at one point in the program, they said, just build what you love. Just build that. And I've been so disappointed in like Americans for the past, few years. Like no one we talk at people, right? And there's all sorts of research that talks about it's very hard to change someone's who they are and their belief. It's really, really hard. There's really a very few percentage of people that kind of live in this self-realized state that says, I have to learn. That's not most of us.
Yeah.
So all of these things came together. All of this, I learned this, and I had just a rush, like a flood of all of these meetings and all of these difficult things. So many times I went home angry. So many times I dreaded going into a meeting because I didn't know how to deal with conflict. And by the way, I've never seen anybody talk about how to deal with it. And so it was just a moment where some things came together for me. And I thought, you know what, I could really help people, and I could help myself. And maybe if I help you with conflict at work, maybe you're a little different with your friends and your family. And so it felt like something that felt very true from a business standpoint, but also like to me spiritually and emotionally, to help people communicate better and use conflict constructively. I'm actually doing my thesis on that right now, right? How do you use transformational leadership to create positive task conflict and in the service of being innovative? And so it's whenever this thing comes up, whether it's I meet with a client, I do a workshop, everybody, as soon as I bring that up, like, hey, we're going to talk about constructive conflict and how to develop a far better relationship with it. You just see everybody. It's like it's visceral. They're like, "Oh God, that's great," because no one tells us how to deal with it.
And conflict's like the word sales.
Oh,
You talk about it, you get the same face you just gave, and it's
like,
interesting. I love what you're saying, really do, because to be a good servant, leadership servant, you got to learn to deal with conflict because it happens every day of our lives. Every no 2 days are the same. We'll go back to that.
yes.
Should be the theme of this podcast.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that for whatever reason, it's kind of who we are. Look, here's the thing. We are genetically wired to be social. We just are. And then what we do is we find our tribe, we find our people, and we get really comfortable with those people. So you come out of that situation and you work with people who aren't in that tribe and who think differently than you and are asking that you think differently. The reality is, for most of us, the response is a negative emotion. Yeah. I know what I know. Don't you tell me that maybe I don't, if I say, hey, you follow this kind of media, depending on wherever you are politically, hey, you should watch this. And people go, no way. If I watch it, I hate everything they say. Right. And so, yeah, it's, if you want to be a good leader and you want to get the best out of people, right? You want them to be the best versions of themselves. You want to learn from them. You want to have a learning culture. Then you have to come to grip with, and you have to come to terms with conflict. And not that every meeting is suddenly rosy, right? That's not what we're talking about. But how do we get intentional about how we think about communication and conflict? And if a leader does that, if a leader models that, guess what? Everyone else starts to do it.
Yeah, because they follow the lead. Absolutely. And upper management has a problem with those tough conversations, the firing, you're doing something wrong, and you're saying you don't make the decision to do that. It's worse than dealing with the conflict, correct?
Absolutely. We want to push things off. I don't want to look at it, right? That kind of monkey, if I don't see it and I don't hear it, and it comes across as passive aggressiveness. It comes across with politicism, with silence, and I'm going to ignore you. And then when it finally comes up, you've had so much emotion that's built that when it comes out, it's like this. And maybe you've had the situation, I know I have, where I was really frustrated about something for a long time and I didn't say anything. And when I finally said it to this person, two things happen. One is I go way over the top because I have all this pent up emotion. And oftentimes what they say to me is, why didn't you tell me before? Right? If you would have told me that 2 months ago that I've been driving you crazy, we could have solved that 2 months ago. Instead, you waited and you're so pissed. And then now the person, you're not communicating, you're not collaborating and building something. You've done the opposite, and your thing of I don't want to deal with it, it'll go away, has absolutely backfired, right? And you're worse off than you would have been if you would have had a conversation, 2 months
Right.
prior, or whenever the kind of the conflict began to appear.
And that's 100% guarantee. I don't say that a lot, and people shouldn't. That's 100% guarantee. You try to walk away from it. 100% of the time, it's not going to get better.
It does not. It gets worse.
Yeah, there you go.
And so there's a kind of a continuum of conflict, and there's like three parts of it. On the first one is like conflict diversion, right? I want to talk about it, and it's poison, right? And a lot of times you can just call it as groupthink. Like, what's most important is it's more important that I fit in with the group than I actually say something. So there's 10 people in a meeting. Me and one other person thinks that whatever this decision that was just made is horribly wrong. And we go, I can't say that. Look, there's 8 other people that agree with that. And so then you're going to leave the meeting and you're going to commiserate with this other person. Can you believe that was the decision that they made? And then you're kind of political, and you've done nobody any good. Now you have on the other side is you have interpersonal destructive conflict. And now it's not about the topic, it's about me and you, right? I can't stand being in the same room. I can't stand how you talk to me. I can't stand anything about you. And in fact, I can't even hear what you say because I'm so annoyed at you. We get into the middle in this sweet spot called constructive conflict. And when we're in there, we're going to go into a meeting. We're going to be very clear. If we begin to have an agreement, what are we disagreeing about? There's 3 things. Are we disagreeing about what we're making? Are we disagreeing with how we're making it? Or are we disagreeing because we have personal conflict? If you don't know those things, if you're not intentional about what, like, really, like, Steve, what is the problem? You're like, I just don't like the plan for the next week. Great. Now we have a conversation. And as long as neither of us are trying to win, one of the things that I share with people are, there's all these great scenes from Apollo 13 there where there's intense conflict, intense, but it's all about the task. It's not about winning. And you get people angrily expressing themselves passionately. And when the decision made and it's over, all right, let's go, right? Because we're on task. And that's such a beautifully simple example, but it's, how do we collaborate, right? People think that the win to conflict is compromise. No, compromise is you lose and I lose, right? It's collaboration. It's yes, and we're going to co-construct. And maybe out of 10 things that get done, maybe you get 7 and I get 3. But all I care about is the 10 things that got done, right? I'm not tallying, I'm not keeping score. Well, that's not fair. They don't have enough of my ideas. So it is recognizing that if you and I try to collaborate, we know what it is that we're debating, and it's not personal, things get better. They just do. It's just inarguable. People start working together, sharing ideas, inspiring each other, collaborating, co-construction. Things get way better. You're going to have rough spots, but they're way better.
Well, life gives you rough spots. I love the Apollo 13 story analogy because it's all about the goal. So you're saying collaborate. Yes. Their goal is to stay alive.
Yeah.
They come with the decision, they would have died. So extreme, but it works in everywhere else.
But if you think about, there's Ed Harris has this great scene, this Gene Kranz, when they get together and he draws the circles on the board, and he's gotten his plan, and he draws the little thing, and it shows that they're only going to get 3/4 of the way back. And he says, that's unacceptable. I can't do that. And the room kind of goes bananas. Well, no, you got to do this. You got to go do that. You got to go do this. And he does something as simple. He's like, people, hold it down one at a time. And people start sharing. And again, they disagree, but they know what they're debating. They're just trying to get these guys back. And because that is the point, no one leaves there upset because they didn't win. Right? Everyone had a chance to speak, and we says, okay, that's the deal. Everybody goes, okay, let's go. Right?
Deal.
I can't imagine there was a bunch of politicking and you know, maybe some people might have been unhappy, but they knew what their job was.
Yeah, and they all want them to get home, and that's what eventually.
Yeah,
that is so cool. Well, we're running out of time here, but let's do a quick shout out. I want people to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my email, I'll give you my website first, which is McGexecutivecoaching.com. As McGonigle, my nickname forever has just ended up being McG. So it's McGexecutivecoaching.com, or you can email me at john@McGexecutivecoaching.com.
Fantastic. Conflict is such a thing that people shy away in your coaching, and I don't know anybody else is doing it. And like I told you earlier before our show, that I know thousands of coaches. So I want to do something a little crazy. Can I do that?
Absolutely. It's your show.
Well, and I want people to contact you. So the first 2 people that contact you, I'm going to send them a gift. I want to reward them to make the decision. If they have conflict, let's use the example, they have conflict, make the decision to reach out to you, and I'll send the 2. You reach out to me. So audience, he's going to send me a message or reach out to me. So these 2 people have reached out to me, and I'll mail you a gift. I'll get your address. But if you're not the first 2 people, we all have conflict in our life. I'm listening to you through this show, and thank you so much for being on.
Yeah,
because conflict's not good for me, and I've learned so much today, and we're definitely going to stay connected because
I look forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
And I'm going to give you a one and is that if anybody reaches out to me, I'll do a free 60-minute, 90-minute coaching session. That's it. No expectations. If you're curious about it, reach out to me. We'll spend some time together, and then it's up to you where it goes.
Fantastic, man. I love it. God bless you. And you can ask these questions about conflict, because you're right, it spills over in your personal life. Yeah, you take care of business, you learn these skills. Well, your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, sibling, whatever that may be, you can handle a little bit better. Again, thank you for being on the show. I can't wait to get this out. I want people to hear this. But can you do me one more favor?
100%.
Can you leave my audience a piece of advice that's helped you through these years that could help them?
It's just work. You know what I'm saying? Like we get so caught up like it's the end all be all. And maybe it's the perspective of time. It's not about money. It's not about prestige. It's about, do you like the person looking back in the mirror? Do you like how you've behaved? Have you given more than you've taken? And can you leave the work at work and go home and be a great husband, wife, father, friend? And so I'm the happiest when I don't lose perspective and I think things are more important than they actually are.